Welcome back, everybody. This is the SMG Blacklist Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, number 23 on the Blacklist, Jack Wengroski, and with me is...
Number 13, Melissa Maxey.
We are here to talk about number 24 on the Blacklist, The Director. This is the next installment of clearing Liz's name. I thought it was exciting. What did you think?
It was exciting. I mean, coming out from before the break with Liz getting captured by Wrestler and Laurel Hitchin killing Reverend Wright.
Oh, that was huge. Yeah, we can't pass over that one. Where did that come from? I mean, talked about in episode 7 that she seemed like she was playing for the other side. It seemed that she was a lot closer to the director than she should be, but I didn't think she was that close.
I didn't realize the magnitude of her involvement. And she was so close with Reverend Wright. Like, they were friends, hugging, and, well, how's your kid? And, next thing we know, Reverend Wright comes over and, it's game over. Well,
much like Wrestler, she came into... She thought she could trust Laurel. I don't know why, but they've been friends for a long time. She just thought, I'll tell her I know what's up with this stuff. And not only does Laurel shoot her, but she shoots her in the most painful and slow way to die, in the stomach.
In the stomach.
And she's just sitting there on the floor, wide-eyed, where did that come from? It's like, well, hey, dummy, you just laid out. So
this plays a big part in this episode, because when the episode starts out with Wrestler bringing Liz in, and we've talked about Wrestler and how he likes to spill all his information to everybody he knows.
Right.
And he does that in this episode.
Right. With the same person. I mean, I know
yes.
we talked about this in 7 with Wrestler, and we talked about it in 8 with Reverend Wright and Laurel. And then he goes up to Laurel because, Reverend Wright, I know I can trust you.
When he says that's not going to happen.
Right. And so he lets her in on the info that Tom has Karakurt in the very specific location of this cabin. And, it was in the area. I'm sure they used intel and some satellite pictures to kind of get to that. But I think we just kind of had to do that ourselves, a little TV magic. Wrestler starts really asking her about it. She's been gone. I think something's happened. And then all of a sudden, she's trying to seem authentic. And this is where she goes wrong, because she said, the last time I saw her, she said something about Tommy Markham. I mean, maybe that's how she got killed.
Yeah, and Wrestler was like, oh no, I just told the person that killed her everything. So then he's backpedaling.
Right.
He start making phone calls. He goes to a ROM and he's like, we're in big trouble. This isn't going to go down good. And I don't know what to do. And
so out in TV land, if you didn't catch that, Tommy Markham was the guy that got Wrestler's dad killed, or actually,
yes.
And, because he was a bad cop. So when he said that was a message from the grave to say that Laurel was the bad cop. And man, I just sat there breathless. Man, it's finally, the tables are turned. Wrestler is usually the one, because he knows that he just gave up the location. Even Tom calls him out. He's, man, every time you do this, you screw something up. I know you're doing the right thing, but come on, man. It's this,
yeah, exactly.
This, play by the rules is getting everybody killed. And, he finally lets up on Tom and starts working with him. But by then it's too late. They're surrounded.
Yeah, they're surrounded. It's the Alamo situation. So I thought that was a really great scene when, Wrestler made it out to the cabin, and him and Tom, when they are together, have really good banter. They're really just they're like brothers, right? You think they'd be wrestling on the floor, and they've done that before. And so for them to be in this shootout scene with Solomon and all of his men surrounding the cabin,
right.
An Alamo scene, and how they slowed down the music and with all the gunshots they just did a really great job with it. I thought it was a really great scene.
It was. Even Karakurt finally says, look, give me a gun. I'm going to shoot them. Yeah, it's me or them, because he knows Solomon's standing out there, and he knows that there's no way Solomon's going to let Karakurt live, because there's just no reason not to at least have him stay alive. There's just none. And in that whole interaction. But let's go back to what's Red is doing in the meantime, because he's set up the meeting with the foreign minister of Venezuela. And at first he didn't want to play ball. What you're asking me to do is tantamount to political suicide.
Yeah, and he's like, see that lady over there taking pictures?
Yeah, which is Samar with a big Canon camera with, this huge close-up lens, and she's from the API, and she really likes to take these close-up pictures.
And I brought you this present, and oh, by the way, it's an album, so you can put all the pictures in with you and me, because I am a fugitive from the law.
Right. And actually, I think I said that wasn't the foreign minister. That was the guy that he was supposed to set up the meeting, and then he wanted to kind of get out of it.
Yes.
So, I'm not going to say it. So, needless to say, the API ruse worked. He sets up the meeting with the foreign minister, and the foreign minister, like I say, that would be political suicide. I can't do that. And he says, well, what about this? And opens up the briefcase of the $100 bill plates. And
which they had set up earlier, because when he had met with Samar, he had already had this ruse in place, and he's like, had his truck, drove out, like created a crime scene and made Samar sit on it and wait for, and they called back the crime scene guys that they had the plates in their van, and called them back like from halfway getting to where they were going to come to this crime scene, so that Samar could steal the plates from him.
Right, and even made it seem like she'd called it in earlier, but dispatch like, well, hey, Lance, it wasn't us. It was, I've been here all day. Well, but it was dispatch. Look, lady, we got here as soon as we can. So they're getting these 4 bags of drugs, which that was one of the things that Red and Samar went to pick up. And we're traveling a little backwards here, but this is Welcome to the Blacklist, right? So he goes to this little stash, and there's these 4 big things of, was it heroin or coke? I think it was coke.
Yeah.
And she's, you're not I didn't think you were into drugs. He said, well, these are kind of for emergencies. And then he goes back into the Red Reddington story about the hashish and the opium den.
Yeah, and how they left, and there was all this on the table, and he just took it because so he'd use it later for something.
Right. Yeah. But that was funny. And
then all the stuff, she's like, do you have stuff stashed like all over the place? He's like, oh yeah, probably. I have stuff in about every state and all over the world. And then you could just see all the different items in there. It was like Raiders of the Lost Ark, or they at the end they like stash away everything. Yeah, he's got like steak here and some wine over here and some drugs over here and a hot motorcycle over there. It was awesome.
Well, that's Red Reddington. Welcome to the world of Red. Yeah, I still, I think you mentioned it something like we're going to have all these stores with Red Reddington hats, and I'm totally in.
Oh, I'm in.
So she gets that briefcase. They've created the ruse, and he starts talking about El Dorado. And El Dorado was like this fantasy of wealth that the Spanish, when they had gone to Mexico, had heard these stories about this chief that had gold and drained the lake where it was supposed to be all deposited as just like a couple trinkets, is pretty much worthless. But I don't quite get how that related to the story because those plates are worth a ton.
He can create it. It's like a reverse because they can create their own money now, right? It's the El Dorado is the plates because now they can just make as much as they want.
I guess that's true. That's the fantasy of wealth. You get as much as you want to print. So yep. I guess I could see that, but it was a little different. They kind of go back to Liz in the box.
Yeah, so Liz gets put in the box by Wrestler, and she's like, as soon as she's like, I'm not going to make it to the courthouse. So it's like a holding place till they can get her to the courthouse. And she's like, I'm not going to make it to the courthouse. They're going to kill me before I get there. And he's like, well, I'm going to protect you in this box. He goes and runs off. Because he messes up with Hitchin, and then he runs off to help Tom and leaves Aram by himself with Liz. And the director is working on a way to get her out of the box. And he tries first to do the code, and the code's been changed. And he figures out it's Aram that's done it. So now he's blackmailing Aram to get Liz out of the box because he wants to take her. And so he implements all of these changes in the box where she can't breathe. And those scenes with Aram and Liz when she can't breathe in the box and they're trying to figure out what to do and he doesn't want to give him the code and she's begging him not to and he's bawling his eyes out with the rest of us. And those were really poignant scenes. I thought I would say that he's the MVP for this episode, Aram.
I would agree. I think we should still have we'll have a vote on it towards the end and maybe, but he was the only one that was there to face off the director. It did not go well. I mean, it seemed like Charlie Brown going up against Darth Vader. It was definitely a mismatch and really almost got Liz killed when Wrestler left and
she died. He brought her back.
Right. Well, they displaced the oxygen with nitrogen. Okay, why have this box if you have that sort of weakness? Because they couldn't get when a Wrestler and Red, they couldn't get in there. The director goes in about 2.5 minutes, figures out all you have to do is displace the oxygen. Not even wait for her to breathe it out, but to actually literally push the oxygen out of the box with nitrogen. Now, I don't know how he did this at this remote outpost, but okay, magic of TV, we'll kind of let that one go. But the fact that he figured out how to defeat this box that fast was amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get this guy just seems so sinister and useless. You forget how dangerous that the CIA director and the director of the Cabal really is.
Yeah, they're very dangerous.
And
they basically take Aram to the point of breaking. They break him because he gets to the point where they have Liz out of the box and they're walking her out and he pulls a gun on him. And it's him against 20 guys, right? And there's no way he's going to win that situation. And Liz has to talk him down. She's like, don't do this. She's like, you have to put your gun down. She's like, they will kill you. And just the look on his face and the way that they shot it with you could just see the pain and his eyes are watery and he's just got snot coming out of his nose.
His hand was shaking. It almost seemed like he really wouldn't take that shot. Yeah, but they should have shot. I mean, if I was the director's guard, I would have shot him on the spot, way before that. If I was
they didn't. I don't understand. Standing in the way, he didn't have any backup. It was him and his gun and 20 guys.
Right. And I guess they had it on video, but the director seemed fairly confident that they weren't going to be able to do anything with that video anyway. We have the video. We can't just do that. And that was the whole reason behind eliminating the air is because they could say, well, look, we were here waiting on it, but the box, even if it's on the video, you can't prove that it wasn't the box that malfunctioned.
Yeah, and then
once you take the nitrogen out of there, so it's just a sad, tragic malfunction. In fact, they wanted her to die because if she was revived, you would kind of be back into square one, where if somebody showed up, okay, now you have a whole lot of problems. Or if you kill her, you got to explain to somebody why you killed her. Like if she tried to get away, I think that was hinging on his B plan, was if somehow she got out of the box, they would have to shoot her for escaping. Yes.
And at that point, that's when Cynthia Panabaker walks in, and she's from the court. Is she from, who is
she? Was from the director of was it intelligence or national security? I think intelligence. But
director of national intelligence.
Intelligence. And she had an order that countermanded every one of the director's orders or any ideas. Oh, that was ugly. That was the ugliest SmackDown I think I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. That was like, I was so excited when she walked in and like, what kind of party are we having here? Because Ron's against the wall, and he's got a gun to his head, and they have Liz, and they're walking her out, and then she just like tells him, yeah, well, you can't do any of that stuff. You can't take her out of this building.
Right. And Hitchin tries to make her play like, well, we've got, we've really tried hard, and she just looked at her and said, we've got some interesting, things going on, but we're going to take care of this, not you. Oh, but this is, nope, my orders supersede yours. And basically, we're going to be eyeballing the both of you
right
over this. She is getting to that courthouse, and oh man, I was thinking, oh, you could just, if there was a slap, it would have gone across the world. It was amazing.
It was. So meantime, at the cabin, they think that Tom and Wrestler are dead in the cabin, right? They're like, go check it out, go see who's dead.
Right, Solomon and his men have emptied hundreds around. In fact, during that, I tweeted with the Sundance Kid and who was the other one? With Robert Redford and Paul Newman.
Butch Cassidy.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It was just like the same scene, only they lived.
Yeah. So Solomon's men go to the cabin, and that leaves him free. And so Tom comes out of the woods and, goes head to head with Solomon and get themselves in a little bind. They kind of have a scuffle. Solomon's on the ground.
Well, Solomon had one of his men had a gun on the back of Tom's head, and it's like, okay, well, that's the end of this game. And they had a gun on, they had a gun on Tom, and Tom's yelling at Wrestler. Shoot him.
He's like, he's like, how did you even make it through the academy? Because he puts his gun down.
I mean, how idiotic was that? Shoot, I don't know. But it showed that
it was a funny scene.
Well, I think it, on top of it, that she wanted to laugh at Wrestler or just smack him, I think it was a device to show that now Wrestler really cares for Tom.
Yeah.
It was a little bro love going on right there. I can't sacrifice Tom. He's done all this for Liz, and we're bros now. If
it was reversed, Tom would have shot him, and there wouldn't have been any problem.
Oh, yeah, he'd have shot Solomon right in the head, and if something happened. But Tom's plan was, look, just let him shoot me. As soon as he shoots me, kill him. And Wrestler, like, without even hesitating, just holds up the gun. Look, setting it down.
Surrendering.
And then out from behind comes Cooper.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Well, Bab. Okay, Solomon gets all smug. I'm going to pick my own judge. I'm going to pick my own jury. In fact, when all's said and done, I'll pick my own island to go to. And I'm just really sick of the smug look on him.
Diplomatic immunity. I remember this on a Lethal Weapon episode once.
Right. And I noticed Liz has that same, I don't know, I gotta quit saying that. I don't even know how to say it. It's this like blank look that she gets, and the corners of her mouth just kind of go limp. And she does she squints her eyes and does this stare like the girl that just got grounded and can't do anything but just kind of give you the dick eye.
Resignation.
yeah, you're a bad guy and I know I can't do anything about it, but I'm going to look at you. I felt like Liz, that's all she can do really in the last episode, because she's spent the last episode and a half really being held in custody.
Yeah, she's in chains. She can't do anything. She has to rely on her team members to get her to safety.
Although I didn't kind of like all the little frowny face on the elevator, but I did like the little smile when she was going up the elevator with everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Because she knows she's going to that courthouse, and when they find out all what's happened, she's probably going to get her name cleared. She knows Red's got all this stuff in play, and the director and Laura are sitting there, and they can't do anything. Their life is now going up in flames.
Yeah. And so we didn't really talk about Cooper very much this episode, but him driving Kara, Kurt, and Tom to the cabin, and they had dropped him off, and they were heading on their way back. Right. They were having this fight about how she had joined a book club and had sex with a neighbor across the street instead, and it was just like they had this all-out brawl the whole time about their relationship and how it wasn't working out.
We kind of found out about that. Wasn't that about the time where he found out that he wasn't sick? Was it that far back?
Yeah.
So it was really kind of old news, but they really hadn't dealt with it. Like I say, the timeline sometimes in this is a little sketchy, but you feel like, oh, they've kind of gotten over this. But she goes straight over there to get the EpiPen, and Cooper's is really not over this.
No, they're still dealing with it, obviously.
Right. And going over there for the EpiPen just really kind of brought it up. Now they're going to this guy's cabin, which,
was their rendezvous point.
Right. Right. So the only reason she knows about this cabin that everybody's going to is because her and the neighbor had sex there. So it's really brought all these old wounds. It was like, wow. And really caused an issue all the way up to the end where I think he takes off and the wife is just sitting there starting to cry because I think Cooper's like, I'm out. They kind of gave you like the feeling that I'm done with this, which I thought after all this time, I could see where the hurt got poked at a little bit. But I also thought, you've known about this for a while.
And that was a point that she made, right? Because she was talking about how he's never home.
Right.
And so now they're together and they've been spending the most time together at this point than they have probably since their honeymoon, right? Because they're like in this situation where they have to be together, and this is like the first time he's had a chance to really talk to her about it, and she's just this is what is wrong with our relationship.
Yeah, the Cabal's here, the nitrogen. Oh, Navabi. That could have been an MVP moment right there because the acting was great. She got the package, El Dorado, and that made the whole meeting possible for Red. So that was huge. I think that could have been an MVP moment.
Tom and Wrestler together in the cabin, Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I mean, that's a pretty big moment. They talked about that on Twitter the whole next day, just the two of them. It was hilarious. And they showed some pictures behind the scenes. There's this one picture. We have it on our Instagram. Our Instagram is the Blacklist Pod. And it shows Diego and Ryan. And they're sitting on this couch in the middle of the floor. And they're all roughed up. Like they've been tumbling. Everything is a mess. And even they're a mess. And their clothes are skewed. Like they've been fighting. And they have this look on their face. That caption was, Mom's gonna be mad or something. It was like hilarious, and they talked about it the whole next day.
What was the code box? Why did I write code box? Navabi
code that he used. That's how they opened the box.
Going back where Rom finally loses it, and obviously she's in the throes of death. Elizabeth has stopped breathing, and he yells out, Navabi. What are you talking about? Navabi. It's the code that opened the door. And so that was huge.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty sad when he finds out about Wrestler.
He already found out. And they really haven't even talked about that.
I know. That's the deal. There's going to be trouble.
I don't know. I think they might come up with something for the two of them because, first off, Wrestler fired Navabi. even though they had just done it because she was helping Red and he was helping Red, which seemed kind of a double standard. I think the wrestler Navabi thing is done with. I don't think that's going to happen again.
Yeah, probably not.
Maybe he might get a little Aram Navabi thing going on. I think there's still a chance, but it was just kind of funny. Well, it was, I don't want to say funny, but it was really interesting that in the heat of the moment, he's got to blurt out the code for that is the girl he likes. He's that guy that in high school, he punches the girl in the arm that he likes. And then,
because he's a techie geek.
He is, but techie geeks aren't always acting like 12-year-olds.
Yes, they are.
Well, musicians do, but I don't know about techies. Maybe so.
I know. I have several in my life. They are exactly like that.
Okay. Maybe I don't know enough techies, or maybe I give them too much credit.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. What was the guy that said they used to make fun of nerds and they would call them names and now they call them boss and yes, sir?
Yep, that's right.
So for you kids out there, don't make fun of the nerds because you're going to be working for them.
That's right.
This is a computer economy. And, it's what growing a conscience is a bitch. Is that what Tom said to Wrestler? Yeah. There were a bunch of great lines in this one. Another thing Tom said was, if you don't act on this, it's like your dad died for nothing. And some really deep stuff going on. Back to the very end. I guess we're kind of wrapping it up here, but they get to the end and Wrestler is now escorting Liz out, and he looks right in Laurel's face and says, I know you killed Reverend Wright. And then he turns to the director of the CIA, who's 10 levels above him, and I want gone by the time I come back. Another wrestler's turn to smack down right after that other lady sweeps him off their feet. He just goes in for the final kidney punch.
It was awesome.
Because he knew as soon as Laurel said Tommy Markham, he knew exactly what that meant, and she was part of the cabal.
Exactly.
And so now that's the end of her career, because when this comes out, and it's going to come out, now that they've made this whole big deal with Liz and all that, they tried to discredit her. If they'd have left Liz alone and gone about their business, I don't think we'd get to this point. But the fact that this is a Watergate issue, the fact that they've gone this far, cover it up, and done all these things, and Solomon's involved, all that is just going to put these guys deeper and deeper. And what's left of the cabal isn't going to put up with either of those two.
Right.
I don't think they'll ever go, those two will never go to trial. The cabal will kill them before it happens, and then everybody will be like, what happened? I thought we were going to get justice. I will say, this is our thing from, I know it's from Enough Said, but I'm going to say, mark my words. Laurel and the director will
go down in the next episode, which is called The Director Part 2. I
have a feeling. Or even shortly after that. Oh, and what about Dembe's in prison for probably help?
We didn't see Dembe except for when he went into the box and when he came out of the box.
Right. Well, he goes into the box. I'm thinking, why are they doing that? Well, he was helping Liz, of course. So I thought it was a stretch, though, because, like I say, Wrestler's been helping and Samar's been helping. So Dembe's the only one that gets put in prison in the box. Come on, I don't know, little unfair, I thought, but it made for a great scene because Dembe's in the box and they bring Solomon down, who thinks that everything is honky dory, and he's got that smug look on his face. Let's go, let's get this moving so I can get my diplomatic immunity. The cabal will free me at any moment, and he passes Dembe right through the cell door, and Dembe just looks at him, and Solomon's trying to put on the game face, and he's still got that stupid smirk. But when all is said and done, he let his guard down. He looked a little nervous. Solomon was, I might not get out of this.
But I think he's thinking that he probably will. And he probably will. He'll probably be the only one out of everyone that gets away. He'll probably be on the list where, still out there, still looking for him.
I don't think so. I think he's too strong a character to be in that background. I think when this is done, I think Solomon is gone. Too sweet to have Red just do something special with him. Drop him from a plane or something extra cool and extra bad. I don't know. So
That'd be amazing.
it's just a fun Dembe for Solomon swap. And but what about the last scene where Red is at the empty grave?
Oh, this was amazing. We didn't know what that was about. We thought, when you see Aram on his bicycle, right, looking for somebody, and it's Reddington because he's like got directions on his phone.
Right.
And he comes up, puts his bike against, he's so adorable, right? He's got his bike and his helmet, and he gets off his bike, and he kind of slumps over there to the grave, and he's like, what am I doing here? Like, why is this empty?
And
like
Red's,
he was going to go in it.
Right. Well, and Red says, I've got friends, all the stuff about seeing friends die in empty graves and filling them or something. And Aram's like, is this for me? And that's why I think he's nominated for MVP, because even Red pulls him aside and said, I'm here because this reminds me that Elizabeth should be in this grave right now.
Yeah. And
you saved Elizabeth. I owe you. Now that's a big favor. They've set Red up as like the of the world, or at least America, or he's like the Black Ops of crime, and he totally owes Aram a huge favor now.
I have a theory about this, and I talked about it on Twitter a couple of months ago about Aram and about how I think he has the secret past. And so he maybe will have to come to Red and need that favor, because I think that we just don't know that much about him enough that possibly they could write something where he has some sort of past, nefarious past, that we could find out about, and he would need Red services.
Well, it's like Samar, and Samar is an Iranian on Mossad, which I still don't get how that worked. And her brother was like, one of like the number one terrorists on the terror list. And yeah, it could be. I said, yeah, no, I don't see Aram having this secret. He's just too open. He's brilliant. What makes the tech part of that show really work. And he's a really important character. And you kind of get caught up in that whole Charlie Brown nerd thing. I don't see like him having this thing where, all of a sudden he's like this real spy, or, something like all of a sudden it turns out he's like a real James Bond guy. However, it could be something where, it's intel, or, something that he was into, and he's going to need a save. And then Red will have to basically spend an episode kind of having, get everything set and a team together and fixing Aram's problem. But I think that's a good call. So,
the other thing that I want to mention is that right before the episode, during the day on Twitter, they had a question and answer with Ryan Eggold, and I wanted to mention one of the tweets. So the question was, what's the funniest thing that ever happened during filming of The Blacklist? And he said, our director, Michael Watkins, threw a fake dead body out of a window just to mess with me. And then he laughs. I was just like, it's so fun, because I love that how The Blacklist really just involves all of the cast members with the fans. And I think it's really important that they do that, because that's how they're going to keep the fans interested. And that's how come they have so many people following them, because they've really just taken the time to invest in, answering our questions and talking with us about the show. And I know that takes time out of their schedule, because he had talked about, he actually got delayed because they were filming an episode, and it was a scene where they were blowing up a bunch of stuff. So they had like pyrotechnics and stuff. So they, there was a time delay with him getting on Twitter, and he was really generous with the fans and answered several questions.
Yeah. And I've noticed, I know with our show, that there's been little responses and quotes from Red, and I think maybe some other people that they interact with not just us, but some of the other podcasts too of the Blacklist. So they're really reaching out. I think they're actually kind of listening to some of this, and that's what really makes it important. They're doing the things to keep the fans happy that I don't know that everybody does.
No, and it's interesting that they even, they don't just think about, because when the show starts on the East Coast, Like I'm on the West Coast, so it takes a couple hours before I can even start watching. And they're really careful about not spoiling while they're on. And they also have cast members set up for each time zone so that when they start the next show, they have people tweeting all the time.
Right.
And I think that's really important too, because then it involves everyone. Doesn't leave out the West Coasters, because the East Coast got to see it beforehand. And, and all of the media sites are really good about waiting to put out recaps too.
All right, so we have the MVP. Do we have, let's see, maybe a Tom in there. Definitely maybe Cooper coming in and saving the day, because this whole thing wouldn't have happened if Cooper hadn't knocked Solomon out. We wouldn't have Karakurt. I think he gets a nom, but...
I think we're in agreement it's a ROM.
I think so. Yeah, to put some other people in there just to be fair, but I think you're right. This week's MVP is definitely a ROM.
He deserves it. He did excellent in this episode.
He did. All right. Well, I guess that about wraps it up. This was the SMG Blacklist Podcast, and that is brought to you by the Southgate Media Group, where you can find us at www.southgatemediagroup.com, and you can check us out there, and there's a whole bunch of blogs, other shows, and a site to donate if you'd like to keep us going, and some of the costs associated with the website and all that, those sort of things. And there's a show, there's a t-shirt that you can get through the link on our Facebook page. And so that's the SMG Blacklist. Is it Blacklist Pod on Facebook? What is it?
It's that. It's SMG Blacklist Podcast.
And go down there and check out the shirts, because we've got, I think, a couple of designs. One that you just finished.
Yeah, I just created a new t-shirt for us. So check it out.
Go to that list or go to that link, and because I don't think we get credit if you don't. And let's see. I'm at J1 Groschke on Twitter, and Melissa, you're at
MS Maxine.
And
our account is Blacklist Pod on Twitter, and on Instagram we're the Blacklist Pod.
And that's about all we have. Until next time.
See you then.